Hello, everyone, and welcome to OHSCA Interviews. I'm Vincenzo Calla, and I'm your host for today's episode. Today, I'm happy to have with me the MP for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner, Glen Motz. Glen was first elected to be the MP for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner in a 2016 by-election and has been re-elected twice since then, having won over 65% of the vote in the recent September election. Glen began his policing career with the Medicine Hat Police Service in 1980 and served in various capacities until his retirement in 2015. Glen received many awards during his time in policing, and outside of his career, he is very involved in his community in many different ways. Thank you, Glen, for your time, and thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So we're going to start off with our question and answer segment, and these questions are asked by members of our high school team. So the first question is one of the questions that I came up with, which is, how are you able to effectively bring the concerns of your constituents to Parliament?
Well, great question. Thank you very much. I think there's a multitude of ways that riding constituency issues are brought forward. And like in many things in life and business and service, it's about building relationships. You may be, we're not in government, as you know, we're in opposition, so it brings, it takes more of a concerted effort to meet with ministers and portfolios that constituents have issues or concerns with, whether it be projects, infrastructure, whatever it is. But it's the behind the scenes relationship building, advocating for, facilitating meetings, advocating for projects, talking to my own colleagues in the Conservative caucus who would be shadow ministers in the different portfolios that, different constituents might have concerns about or issues with. And my service in the last 5 years in Ottawa has been all in opposition, unfortunately. I hope to change that soon. But we beyond helping people in the constituency and having their voice heard in Ottawa from a legislative perspective, we as an office, my office in the constituency is a non-partisan office. I'm a Conservative MP, but we serve the issues of all peoples, and we deal with a number of different issues of Canadians that constituents that have with their federal programs, federal departments, things like immigration and Canada Revenue Agency, Canada Post. There's the Phoenix pay issues. There's a lot of different things that come forward. We've in the last 5 years we've probably had over 1,200 or so people that we've dealt with in our riding on some of those issues, and that's where a lot of the interaction comes from who needs help perspective. Seniors programs through the federal government. So one of the other things that I think it's important to, people complain to MPs a lot about things that they're bothered about with government, and so when you look at what's happened over the last 5 years with this current Liberal government, Canadians are very concerned with some of the lapses in ethical judgment and the scandals and the corruption. And so, those things aren't necessarily made known to the public unless it's the opposition holding the government to the feet to the fire through question period or through committees. So that's kind of how some of those concerns for constituents get to Parliament, are heard here in Ottawa, and are then helped back at home.
Well, those are all really interesting and important parts of being an MP, as you just mentioned. I mean, obviously, on the floor of the House of Commons and some of your colleagues who are deputy shadow ministers and shadow ministers, they have sort of their own thing that they're working on. So, for example, Michelle Ferrari, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, she's focusing on tourism, and just overall, there's always the party messages of right now it's inflation. Inflation is a big issue that's affecting all people, but sometimes you have to remember that those aren't the only issues, that every constituent has issues, and depending on where it is in the country, there are so many different issues that you have to focus on as an MP that aren't just the hot button issues, the issues of the week, if you could call them, in
Exactly.
terms of the party issues.
Yeah, well said. There's as many people as there are issues. So,
Exactly, and they all vary from
absolutely.
everybody. Yeah. So we're going to go into the next question, which is from Evan in Ottawa, and he asks, "What was your initial reason for getting involved in politics?"
Great question. My initial reason for getting involved in politics. I mean, I think for me, I served the community of that I lived in for 35 years, and not only in policing career, but also in many volunteer capacities. And so when you really get, you really understand what service to others is about. It's certainly something that that you can't walk away from. And so, in circumstances for me in the by-election, I had individuals from my community approach me and encourage me to pursue, the MP role. And so, I met with past and current members of Parliament, members of Legislative Assembly in Alberta, business leaders, community leaders, and I asked them, questions about what they felt about my suitability for that role and how my service might be to them. And based on that I took their encouragement to pursue this. And so, I mean, it is about service. No one gets into this political arena and are worth anything if they're in it for themselves. The only reason that I'm here is to serve the people that elect me and those from my riding, and to try and make Canada a better place. And to have a voice at the table to do that is incredibly important. And it's a responsibility that I take very, very seriously.
And again, it all goes back to that constituency work, right? I mean, you get to the people of the community were the ones, like you mentioned, that encouraged you to run. The people of the community are the people who voted for you in your 3 elections now. The people of the community are the people that you get to serve in the House of Commons and in Parliament and just every day in your work as an MP. So I guess that you can obviously speak to it better than I can, since you've been elected for 5 or so years now. But I think that, yeah, it's just important that, and like you said, it's important that you get into politics for the right reason. There's nothing worse than an MP who's in it for themselves or in it for the money. I mean, I'd like to hope that there aren't very many like that, but it's just so important that you're in it for the right reasons.
Well, you know what, it's a good point that you make. I think most of the MPs that I've met here from various parties, they have a similar goal. They want to improve the quality of life. They want to improve things in our country and for Canadians. And that's generally what I hear when I interact with them. We have different ways to go about doing that. We have different policy positions and reasons behind, motivations behind things, and different ideologies sometimes get in the way of what's best for Canadians. And so I'm seeing that most of the colleagues I hang around with, well, on all sides, are generally pretty connected to their communities and want to do what's best for their communities, from their perspective.
And that's so important. I mean, like you said, you may differ in ideology, you may differ in policy, you may differ in the reason and the issues that you may be raising during question period or a committee or those sorts of things, but you're all there. Well, most of you are there. Well, the big majority of you are there for similar reasons and just wanting to serve their community and wanting to make a difference. So we're going to go into the third question, which goes really well with it, which is, what have you learned during your time as an MP about serving your community, and just what have you learned about your community in general and serving them?
Well, I guess I had this distinct advantage prior to putting my name forward to seek the nomination to be the Conservative candidate in my riding is I had the privilege of serving my community in policing, knowing many of the people that I served. You get to know them personally over the years, being involved in the volunteer community, which is, somewhat different. I have agricultural roots, and so, I was connected with people in rural Alberta and in the rural community around. So, I think those things were really helpful for me to set a foundation of what service really is to others. And so, I think, also a faith background grounds an individual on the importance of serving others. And so being a member of parliament is not something that is for the faint of heart. It's challenging. It's a lot of work to be, first of all, nominated generally, and then it's a lot of work to be elected. But I think the most challenging part that I've experienced so far is, being able to deliver expectations for your riding, for the people in the riding, especially in a very partisan House of Commons. It's something that I struggle with to this day, and I'm basically a rookie compared to some with only 5 years under my belt. But I find the partisan positions to be, they almost sometimes they get in the way of what's best for all the good of Canadians, and things move slowly in federal government, and that's the frustrating part. Is you can see some things look so simple and so it's so clear. This is what Canadians need, and you start you think you want to start working toward that end, but then there seems to be more obstacles than opportunity. And and if you were successful in getting either private members bills or other bills or motions or legislation to be approved in the House of Commons and the Senate, it just seems to take forever to actually put those into an effect. So it's a that was a, I understood that before I got into federal politics, but it'd be more connected to the municipal side of politics where you get things done in days and weeks. Here it takes years, and so that's been a real adjustment to try and understand and work through that, and helping constituents realize that some things don't work as quickly as we'd like to hope that they would. But it's always important. It's always important to stay grounded. I return to my riding every weekend, and I do that for a multitude of reasons. I do it because there's always activities and events that I can connect with constituents there, and just to stay grounded. Ottawa, it's a bubble, and that's, I heard that before I came here, and I hear it still to this day, that there's an Ottawa bubble, and it's it's not, the real world is not Ottawa, and the real world is the constituencies across this country where Canadians live and work, and then have to try and navigate through the pieces of legislation that impact their lives. And so you recognize that, you recognize the incredible honor and privilege and then responsibility it is to serve Canadians in this capacity.
Well, those are all very, I guess, very relevant to your role as an MP. You hit everything. You hit the Ottawa bubble. You hit just serving your community. You hit especially like how long it takes to get things done. And it also must be frustrating for people, especially people that have, say, an issue that they really want to get looked at. And if you propose that in a private member's bill and it goes forward, then it must be also frustrating for them. But I think that's part of that. Well, frustrating to see how long it may take, but I think that's a part of it that, like you said, that you learn over time, and that's sort of something that you need to work with when thinking about policy and thinking about the urgency of policy and how much time it might take.
There are many challenges, and there's, as we talked earlier, there is a variety of topics. My goodness, there's, you had mentioned previously about all the different, concerns or issues that individual constituents may have, and those, and different pieces of legislation that become part of what government deals with every single day. So, you learn quickly, you learn to rely on colleagues, you learn to rely on good staff. It's critically important to have good staff to help, navigate the different processes and systems that exist. And quite honestly, you don't work here in a bubble. And so, to get things done for your riding, it's a team approach. And that's where I really appreciate the Conservative Party. That's what I really like about my colleagues and our staff, where we really work well together, and it's awesome.
Well, that's especially, I mean, it's the staffers, it's the comm staff and the support staff and the office staff in your constituency and in Ottawa on the Hill. It's those people that keep the constituency offices in the Ottawa offices running. And like I've said with some guests before, I think it's people need to remember that it's the staff that keeps things running in terms of getting things forward and arranging meetings between, say, yourself and constituents on an issue or something like that. It's the staff that doesn't get enough credit sometimes. So shout out to all the staff.
Shout out to the staff. They are what keeps this place going.
For sure. And they're all very helpful all the time. I call a bunch of constituency offices and Ottawa offices, and everybody's so helpful. So we're going to go into the fourth and final question of this segment, and then we'll go on to our last question. But this question is from Jaireet in Brampton, and it's fairly straightforward. So let's set the scene a bit. It's election night. You're at your favorite local restaurant in your riding, and everybody's there. It's a big party. You're watching 3 different news sources at a time, watching and waiting for the results to come in. And just Jaireet wants to know, what is it like to win an election? It's just, what is it like?
Well, for me, we always have our event, our election night at the campaign office. We invite, pre-COVID, we invited, volunteers that helped us. We invite supporters, and we have the media is always there. It's a lot of people around. Winning an election, when you put the amount of effort and work into the process, because elections are a lot of work. The feeling is because I'm glad it's over. It's one, but it's also, you always appreciate the efforts that are put in and the trust people put in you, and it's a good feeling. But I think more importantly, you feel gratitude for your close people on your team that help you, in the campaign, and the volunteers that help knock on doors with you and do everything else, signs and everything. But more importantly, you feel a responsibility and a gratitude because it's the voter. It's the voter who trusts you, who believes in you to work for them on their issues, and in Ottawa, and the support that you get that way is you can't thank people enough. You have an immense sense of obligation and duty to serve them well, and you want to do everything you can to help their own well-being. So it's a it's a real sense of responsibility. I think the weight of the role of the MP didn't hit me until the very first time in my 2016 by-election. Didn't really hit me until the next morning. I had gotten up early to start picking up signs and taking off the big signs and stuff, like just about at daybreak in that year. And so I had a lot of time to think just by myself for a while, and it hit me like, oh my goodness, like all this work is now done. Now the real work begins to not only earn the support, but you've got the initial support for the election, but you have to earn continued support. You have a huge sense of responsibility to the people that believe in you to do something, to give them hope, and whatever it is that they expect from the elected officials. And it can be overwhelming at times, and it's one person at a time, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time that you're committed, and this is about This is about people. This is about improving, life for Canadians. And it's being reminded of that every day. Why are you here? What are you doing? And are you staying true to your duty to serve your constituents well? You need to do everything you can to advance advance that. And so I mean the feeling is unlike, I mean, I've played sports before, and you have a win, or you have a winning season, or you win a tournament, or you win the league. It's fantastic. But when you win in politics, to me, the real win in politics is not necessarily on election night, but when you know that what you're doing as a party, what you're doing, as a government, is actually making our country better. It's actually improving, the quality of life for individuals, and that's, I remember years back, when in my policing career, I was talking with colleagues in the policing about, they had come out with a new criminal code law. And we were looking at this law and we said, man, why didn't the elected officials think of this or consider this or consider this? And when I would first go down to Ottawa, I was in a meeting, a committee meeting with all the parties, they were all there. And I told them that story and I says, you know what? It just hit me. We sitting around this table as elected officials are them. Why didn't they think of this? It's now us. So that enormous responsibility to Canadians, to constituents, is something I face every day. It's a reminder. It's a great, gentle reminder to an important role that we play to serve the people well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to go too deep into this because we only have a couple minutes left and we need to get to the last question. But basically, like you said, when you win in politics, it's just the beginning. When election night isn't a happily ever after. It's a once upon a time, really. I guess that's the best way you can say it. It's the start. It's not the end. It's the very beginning of a new chapter, whether you're getting elected for the first time or whether you're being reelected. So so we're going to go into the next part, which is called Advice for the Next Generation, where we'll quickly go over youth involvement in politics and more. So the last question that we ask every single person on our show is, what should young high school conservatives do in order to get more politically active? And what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
So what can high school students do? And what piece of advice? I think I'm always impressed with the younger generation, high school kids who are interested in not ideology so much as improvement for themselves, learning, and then wanting to improve their communities and their countries. So I would encourage high school students to get involved in their local, find the candidate of the party that they choose to, that they resonate most with, that connects with them the best, and volunteer in their campaigns, help out with their door knocking, get involved in, if they happen to have a youth advisory board, get involved in the youth advisory board. Those are some things that, kids can be involved. I mean, I don't have an advisory board set up right now, but I have had, and I met with them every month and was very impressed with, their understanding, and then, the suggestions they had to improve things. And I think that there's two things. One, don't ever sell, just because you're young, don't ever sell yourself short that, you shouldn't be taken seriously, but then don't take yourself so seriously. You need to be flexible in your learning. You need to be flexible in our approach. We need to be flexible in, listening to other people's, we don't have to agree with them, but we need to listen. And, we can debate issues without, disliking the person we're debating with. And so that's what comes to mind with that question.
Yeah, those are some great pieces of advice, and just something really to remember, especially if you're a young conservative getting involved in politics, or really if you're young and you don't quite know what party you fit into, especially a youth advisory board is probably a really great way to sort of start off and look at it from, I guess, not a nonpartisan way, but just sort of a way to sort of start off and find your footing there. So that's it. Thank you, Glenn, for joining us today. It was great having you. We hope you enjoyed today's interview. You can look for more videos coming soon. Make sure to follow our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok accounts at Ontario HSCons for info about our next interview and for more great content. Make sure to look at our website at ontariohsconservatives.org to learn more about us, to see our projects, and for more great content. For our YouTube viewers, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss a video. And for our podcast listeners, make sure you follow us and stay updated with new episodes. Thank you all for coming and listening, and we hope to see you all soon.